Hello and welcome to the channel. We are the Lorcana Twins and we're here with another episode to cover the latest card reveals that have happened in Disney Lorcana. And it's been a busy week. There's been 5 new card reveals since our last video.
Yes, and one of them in particular is a very great card, if you catch my pun. So, without further ado, let's get right to that card.
Yes, a super rare Tinkerbell Giant Fairy.
Now this card is very exciting. It was somewhat revealed earlier in a blurry picture of the Illuminator Trove little guidebook that comes in there that shows off all the cards, but we finally get to see the clear image with all of the text. So Tinkerbell Giant Fairy is a 6-cost inkable, 4/5 stat line, Floodborn Ally Fairy. You can shift this card for a cost of 4 instead of 6. It has 2 lore pips, so pretty decent. And then the first ability, Rock the Boat. When you play this character, deal 1 damage to each opposing character. So this is the first example we've seen of something that is basically an AoE effect or hits every character on your opponent's side of the board. And then the second ability, Puny Pirate. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to chosen opposing character. So, essentially, let's say you had the 3-cost Tinkerbell that's in steel, and then on turn 4, you shift this Giant Fairy Tinkerbell on top. The ink would be dry, so she can already challenge immediately. 1 damage will hit everything on the opponent's side of the board. You could possibly do a surprise trade into one of your opponent's exerted characters, and then maybe that 2 extra damage from the Puny Pirate effect might put away a third character. If when you first play this, the 1 damage might knock out some pesky little 1-drops like Pascal's or the 1-cost Maleficents.
Right.
So those have been a problem for a long time, I think, in people that have been testing out the game. Like sometimes it's hard to deal with all those minions, especially the Pascal that has evasive. But Tinkerbell seems like a great counter to that, and she might, get multiple removals basically just when this comes into play.
Yeah, I think this is really the card we've been waiting to see. We've definitely needed some AoE, and we knew it was coming in the game, but it's exciting to see it's finally here. And yeah, just imagine if, your opponent is sitting there with 3 Pascals on the board and they're all evasive and you can't challenge them. All of a sudden, by playing this 1 card, they're all gone and your problem's over and off the table. So this is just really powerful in itself. And then if you combo that extra 2 damage you're able to do off of her Puny Pirate ability, something that you maybe pinged for 1 when you played her, now you do another 2 to it, and you're able to take out something with 3 willpower just like that, without even having to challenge into that unit, and, as long as you're able to banish a different unit in a combat. So I think this card's amazing, and I think definitely it's one of, if not my most excited card right now.
Yeah, I think this is one of those possibly meta-defining cards. I mean, I can see easily this being a staple in a lot of mid-range steel decks that just want to do a lot of early damage and kind of control the board.
Yeah, the amount of board control with this 1 card alone is just phenomenal. And then when you combo it with other things like that legendary Beast card we saw revealed a while back, there's a lot of nifty combos you can do there as well.
Right, so that legendary Beast, essentially he exerts all of your opponent's damaged characters. So if Tinkerbell comes down on turn 4 and damages everything on your opponent's board, then with the exception of whatever they play on the following turn, if you play Beast immediately following that, everything that has damage on it should be exerted, and then Beast can rush in and hit any of those.
And then Tinkerbell can, maybe get another trade off and then activate her Puny Pirate ability again. So
she has the ability to really help you win the board and then kind of snowball from there. And that's what I think is really exciting about this card.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And the art is just beautiful. And I love the expression on Tinkerbell's face. It just captures her attitude, from the movies very well. And now she's got the size to back up her attitude. Those Lost Boys or those people pictured there on that cliff better look out.
Yeah, I think the sense of scale on this card is awesome, just comparing the size of Tinkerbell to the pirate ship. And then my favorite part of the art is just the texture on those wings. They almost look like stained glass wings, with various patterns and lines in there. So very much a fan of this card.
Yeah, and I like the tropical palm leaves that are kind of giving some depth to it by putting those in the foreground, and then the mountains in the back, and the birds too. That's cool how they threw in some little seagull type birds. So
now we will get right on to the next card.
Yes, Simba. He is a 2-cost inkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower character with 1 lore. He's a Storyborn Hero Prince, and he has Bodyguard. So it's interesting, he's in Amber, just like the Minnie Mouse card we've seen before, and he has the same exact stat line and cost and lore value, but he has bodyguard. So the difference here being he's not a princess, and we know princesses get synergy off of Moana. So maybe they thought that was, why they could print a similar card, but, depending on which deck you're running, it might influence whether or not you'd want to run Simba or the Minnie.
But and also, if you do use that bodyguard ability the turn you play it, it does make Simba vulnerable immediately to anything your opponent might be challenging with. But there's certainly times when bodyguard is going to come in handy to protect, maybe the one drop that you played the previous turn, or some other more valuable characters on your side of the board. So putting Simba in front of them might be a good idea in some cases.
Yeah, and this stat line at this cost is pretty good. So, and this art looks amazing. It looks like he's in the elephant graveyard, and he's trying to frighten off an enemy.
Yes, he looks pretty ferocious here. Next, we have Befuddle, which is an amethyst action that costs 1 and is inkable, and the effect is just to return a character or item with cost 2 or less to the player's hand. So you can use this on your opponent's stuff, you can use it on your own stuff, and so there's going to be a lot of ways that you can apply this, and I think just the versatility of the card is what's pretty cool about it. And because it's inkable, if you don't find a moment where this really works for you, you can always just throw it in the ink, because late game, maybe most of the things on the field are going to cost more than the 2, so at that point this might not get a ton of value, but there's always going to be times where you might be able to pull off a cool combo with this. And whether it's by, let's just say you had a 1-cost Maleficent, you quest for 2, and normally she's very vulnerable there, but now you can just return her to your hand for the cost of 1 and play her again, and now she won't be exerted, and then maybe on the next turn you can get 2 more lore, whereas otherwise she might have just died or been banished in a challenge. So that's one way you can maybe use her in a greedy lore deck that just wants to quest a bunch, and then you can maybe protect it by returning it to your hand and then playing it again. Of course, if there's annoying items on your opponent's side of the field, or characters that you're struggling against, if they're cheap cost of 2 or less, you can always send them back to the hand and just slow them down a bit. So lots of versatility here, and it's fun to see another action card from the Sword in the Stone franchise.
Yeah, and I think especially like bouncing your own units that might have an on-play ability would be another good use for this. And you never know, when people are in top deck mode, they might top deck some low-cost characters as well that could still threaten some lore gain. So to just set them back a turn could always be a good option. So that is Befuddle. And now, staying within that franchise, we have Merlin, self-appointed mentor. He's a 4-cost inkable with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and only the 1 lore, but he has a support keyword, and we previously only seen this on Hey, who has 1 strength. So here it is a support on a 3 strength unit, so when you add his strength to a different character's when he quests, it allows some of your other weaker characters to all of a sudden punch for a lot more damage than they normally could. So that right there alone is quite threatening to the opponent, and even a 1 damage character can now all of a sudden do 4 damage in 1 hit. So a lot of potential there, and yeah, it costs a decent bit to get 1 lore, but the stats are comparable to some other 4-cost drops we have seen. So it looks like there's a lot of potential with this Merlin.
Yeah, and even though he only has that 1 lore, I think if you're consistently using his effect and giving +3 strength to some of your other characters, your opponent is going to want to get rid of this Merlin, so that might put some pressure onto him, and he has pretty decent stats at 3-4 when he still has this effect. So I think he's gonna make for some really interesting deck building.
Yeah, he just makes all your weaker characters stronger, and then it slows them down if they decide to go after Merlin and take him out. So
yeah, and it even gives your mid-range characters enough reach to kind of swing up and hit some of the really high cost minions and maybe take them out in 1 hit. So with Merlin, you maybe don't need to go as high into the cost of your characters, and you can probably still get some favorable trades. And if he looks weak in the moment, you can always ink him. So.
And then the oldest revealed card we have not yet touched on is the Donald Duck, shutting his stuff.
So Donald Duck is a 5-cost inkable, 4/3. So just like that Merlin stat line. Oh, actually, he's 4/3 instead of 3/4. But 5-cost, and then he has 2 lore pips. But the one interesting thing about him is that his effect is ward. So basically, you can't target him with effects. And so as long as you keep him unexerted, then at some point you should be able to quest for that 2 lore. Some exceptions being if there's some AoE damage that can do 3, then Donald would, be banished from that. Or if there's cards that do like banish every character on your opponent's side of the field, which I'm not sure if they'll have anything like that. They very well could, but I think it would be very expensive if they're going to go for something like that.
But at least Ward protects you against, abilities where your opponent gets to choose a character. They're unable to choose this Donald Duck. So it'll just, let you protect him from their, actions. And then also it's nice that with, let's say you throw down a bodyguard character in front of the ward, then that'll keep him safe even when you do exert him to quest, because he does have a weaker amount of willpower at 3 at a cost of 5. That's not a lot of willpower for that cost, so he will be pretty vulnerable when you do send him on a quest. But if you protect him with bodyguards or some other means, then that might be a way to try to get the most value out of this Donald Duck.
Yeah, currently I think he looks kind of expensive for the stats, and it's not great, the willpower like you mentioned. A lot of things in this game can do 3 damage, including some things that cost only 1. Specifically the Captain Hook, that's a 1/2, swings up for 3, and a lot of 2-drops can do 3 damage as well. So, the ability to get 2 lore off him might be nice with the ward to protect, but then again there's this a 1-cost card that gives you 2 lore, and that's just way faster. So I think there's going to need to be a very specific deck build that makes him shine. Otherwise he's probably not going to see too much play based on the other cards we've seen so far. But at this point, who really knows?
And the more we see actions being revealed, because we haven't seen a ton of actions yet, and the more that are, I think the ward keyword is just going to keep seeming more and more valuable. And so it could very well find a place in decks. But those are the 5 cards that were recently revealed that we haven't covered yet. And I think for me personally, the Tinkerbell card is absolutely my favorite of the 5, and I'm super excited to put that in a deck.
Definitely.
But we want to know from you guys, is that your card that you're most excited about too so far of these 5? And are there any other close contenders that really excited you to see them revealed, whether it's just a character you really like, or a different stat line, different take? Because now we've seen a few different Simbas, and maybe we'll get another Simba, maybe we won't.
But it's really exciting. We still have only seen slightly less than half of the cards in the first chapter, and already I feel like there's a lot of good variety for deck building. It's going to be very fun just to kind of fill in the blanks with the other half of the cards. And
every time I see a card like the Tinkerbell, it just really excites me for, it just shows there's so much potential for the other cards that are still hiding out there that we haven't seen. And I'm sure when the full set is out, there will be just, a plethora of fun deck building ideas out there. And, it'll be hard to test it out, but we're going to definitely try to do that and have fun all the time with that. So
with that, we will conclude this video, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. So thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thank you very much.